or mute me rather.
Okay, we are now live streaming and we are recording. I'm going to hand the meeting off. I'm going to make Fred the host, and then Fred, you can go ahead and make, once you're host, you'll make a friend a co-host of yours, and then drive the meeting if you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry not to see everyone on video tonight. My MacBook is not working, so I'm on an old computer. So forgive me. Colby, a quick question. I heard through the grapevine that David Wheatley is now a committee member. Is that true?
You know, I don't know. Isn't that horrible? David, is that true? Do you want to be a committee member? Let me. David, let me or you actually I can't unmute him. Can you unmute David?
Yeah, can you hear me?
It's yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm eligible. I'm already on the Silverlight.
It's the way it works. It's up to the co-chairs of the committee to decide that.
Yeah, well, if you want to appoint me and make me on the committee, I'd love to be on it.
And it's since you're not a member of the general board, we don't have to worry about quorum and those things, those kind of things.
So this is not something that you appoint, Colby.
No, I don't believe I do. No, what I do is I nominate the committee chairs, and then the general board votes on the committee chairmanship or chairpersonship, and then the committee chairs then bring in the committee members.
Okay, all right. So if that's the case, then so David Wheatley, would you like to be on the board, or would you like to be on the committee?
Yes, I would be.
Let me check the bylaws right now to see if he can join this one. He's not on the agenda. Let me see if you guys keep talking, but I don't know. Let me make sure that this is the way the bylaws changed.
Colby,
I
have them.
assumed he was on the committee because his name is appearing on the screen. That's why I asked the question.
Oh no, he was. That's a different screen. That's not. He's not put on as a panelist. He's just, his name is, because he was speaking earlier before the meeting started. We were just having a general conversation about.
I see. Okay, so
I
hope I didn't.
that's why he's not a panelist, because he appears on the screen.
Okay. Forgive me.
Colby, I have the committee membership rule right here. If you'd like me to read it.
Yes, refresh me. Yes.
Standing rule committee membership that was approved on May 17th of this year. A request to join. Eligible stakeholders may request to join a committee by attending at least one meeting. I think David Wheatley has more than fulfilled that function of the committee in making a request to join during the meeting, as well as submitting a written request to the committee chairs. The individual will be added to the committee prior to the next regular meeting of the committee. For newly elected council members, that's not applicable here. So, and then of course, assuming that the co-chairs both agree, which I would support, then he would need to take planning and land use training if he hasn't done so already through his work with his other neighborhood council.
So he needs to submit something in writing, a written request.
Yeah, an email.
Before this, yeah. Okay. So David, you won't be part, because I don't think, have you done that, David? I submitted a written request to.
I have not done that. I guess unless I can submit a verbal request. I didn't know.
Yeah, it got more confusing over the past year with these new standing rules, but the way it is now, thanks Tess for reading that, you're required to submit a written request to Fred and Ren before the next meeting, so you wouldn't be eligible for this meeting because of that written request requirement.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, all right, very good. Let's call the meeting to order. It is 7:05 p.m. and we have how many members of the public today? Let me check. 3 members of the public. Actually, that would be,
Well, I count, I'm not on the committee either. so
actually,
it's-
Jonathan Gregory needs to move. Oh, wait, hold on a minute. We need to move these people to panelists. Hold on a second. Actually, only one person from the public. That would be David Wheatley
And me?
and Colby. Okay, you gonna stick around, Colby?
I'll stick around for a few moments to answer some questions if something comes up, but I'll jump off when I need
Okay,
to.
so 2 members of the public. And 7:05 p.m. we started. Okay, with that, let's do a roll call. And Ren Blight,
Here,
Fred Iberry, here, Tess Taylor,
Here,
Mark Stephenson. Why do I always get that wrong? He's excused, I believe. Mark, he's not here. Okay, and
I'm sorry, Fred, Mark has asked to, he has to take off until the end of the year. He's asked to be excused effectively for the rest of the year, but he'd like to stay on the committee. So
Actually, that might trigger some, that might trigger some issues with the new standing rules, but we can talk about that another time.
yeah,
Right, Tess, you have
I think it may, Colby, but we'll deal with that later.
okay, so the purposes of this meeting will mark him excused, and then upcoming, whether he stays on or not, we'll figure it out. Bob Scabelli,
Here.
Jonathan Gregory,
here.
Ron Babini,
Here. Here.
Lee Jamison. Okay, I don't see Lee. I'll mark him as excused for now. Okay, with that, let's go to item number 3, the minutes. Now, I don't know, my secretary, let's call her that, forgot to change the date on the motion A. The minutes that were submitted are correct, the July 11th, but the motion should read approve the July 11th meeting, not the May 9th. The secretary used an old template. So with your permission, I'm just going to cross out May 9th and write July 11th. We can go ahead and approve the minutes if that's okay,
As amended, sure.
as amended. So I'm going to do that. I'll fix the agenda.
And Fred, are we looking at the meeting minutes that say August 23rd or the meeting minutes that say July 11th?
I was looking at them that say July 11th, but I suppose we could do both, or we could do the August minutes at our next meeting. What do you guys think?
Right. They were both posted, so it's just a matter that you forgot the date on it, or that secretary with the cocktails didn't write it right.
Fine,
So,
okay, so
yeah,
then
it's both of them.
we'll do both of them, and I'll just do 2 motions. Let's see, I already have a motion A and B, so I have to do, how about motion A1? Can I do that, or should I do motion A and B and then move motion B to motion C?
I think it's good, Fred, to do them separately for an abundance of clarity.
Okay, so we'll do motion A, motion B, and then our motion B that comes later, we'll change to motion C. All right, so motion A, approve the GTLNC July 11th Plum Committee minutes. Do I have a first?
First, Tess.
Do I have a second?
Ren,
Ren, okay. And let's go ahead, any discussion? I don't see any hands. All right, no discussion. Let's go to a vote. Ren Blight,
yes.
Mark is excused. Jonathan Gregory,
Yes,
Fred, yes. Bob Scabelli,
Yes.
Tess Taylor,
Yes.
Ron Babini.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes for 502, right? Because 2 are excused, 500, 2 are excused, or not excused, 500. All right, motion B, approve the, what's the next date? August 23rd, was that the date? Hold on, I'm sorry, I don't have my paperwork in front of me. What was our August meeting date?
23rd.
23rd, thank you. Okay. So motion B, approve the GTLNC August 23rd Plum Committee minutes. Do I have a first?
First, Tess.
First Tess, do I have a second?
Jonathan,
Jonathan, second. Any discussion? Okay, I don't see any hands. Let's go to a vote. Ren Blight,
Yes,
Mark is excused. Jonathan Gregory,
yes.
Fred Iberia, yes. Bob Scibelli,
Yes.
Tess Taylor,
Yes.
Rhonda Beanie,
Yes.
yes. Lee Jamison is excused. Okay, the vote again, 5-0-0. Motion
John?
carries.
Red, it's 6. 6 yeses
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, yeah, you're right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you.
on both motions.
Both motions, 6 yeses. Okay, thank you for that. And now moving on to item 4, public comment. Anyone would like to speak for public comment? Please raise your hand. David Wheatley, I will ask you to unmute. Go ahead. You've got 3 minutes, David.
Wow, 3 minutes. That's a luxury. Thanks. This is David Wheatley, longtime stakeholder by my definition in Toluca Lake, here all the time. And I go to a lot of different land use preservation meetings, such as California Cities for Local Control, California Alliance of Local Electeds. I go to, where else? Catalyst up in Northern California. And I've brought 4 appeals, sometimes with others, to Plan and Land Use Management Committee of the Los Angeles City Council. And I'm finding that what the preservation movement is up against is a massive influx of capital. And it's not just here in Toluca Lake, as evidenced by giant buildings, one in particular, I harp on it all the time. But there are other people that log on to these meetings from Connecticut, Massachusetts, and I hear about it in other cities like London, England, up in Toronto and in Vancouver. These massive influxes, if that's a word, of capital to build giant structures wherever and whenever they can, which often far exceed the need for those structures. And as the capital moves through the system, it tends to influence people because money talks. Everybody knows that. And then while at the same time money is talking, money is also silencing people. An example is there's a League of California Cities, and also these groups, Southern California Association of Governments. There's another one up north. And many of these cities, 400 plus of them in California, look to the legislature in Sacramento for money, new fire engine, new police cars, money for this, money for that. And so when the legislature comes up with a bill, such as saying, Los Angeles, you need to create 20,000 units of housing, LA does not push back because they don't want to tick off the same people in the legislature who are giving them fire engines and police cars. So the opposition to these giant structures is muted by our elected officials and by the staff people that work for them. And it trickles down to organizations like this, to people that are in the business who benefit from these developments and the flow of capital. So about the only hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi, is that the public will step up and start saying, we don't want this. We want the capital to go elsewhere, or we want them to knock it off. We want them to invest in something else that's not as harmful to the people. So I'm hoping that this committee will be able to do more in this regard. And I'm very, very frustrated. I've been working on preservation for a long time and getting pretty close to nowhere. And I haven't worked on something. Thank you. I haven't worked on something this hard and gotten so little progress in a long time. So I ask for your help. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, turn that off. Okay, thank you very much, David. Anybody else have anything to say? Right? Tess, go ahead.
Hi, Fred. I have a non-agendized meeting. Ren and I briefly discussed this. It was on the Government Affairs Committee meeting last week, and we put a pause on it, but I've done some research. There was a motion that I put forward to oppose a council file 221100S5, which is now a ballot measure or in the process of becoming a ballot measure. And I would like to submit that as a draft community impact statement for next month. I've done some research on it. Ren, empowerla.org. There's some lobbying do's and don'ts. There's some restrictions about neighborhood councils when and how they may submit CISs if a ballot measure has been placed on, if a measure has been placed on the ballot yet or not. So it is possible. There are some technicalities that we would have to observe, but I will submit that motion for discussion and vote to the next Plum meeting, Fred and Ren. So just wanted to let you know I did that research, Ren.
Yeah, good. I took a look at that. If the city council were to take a position on that, then we would do a CIS and so forth. But if they don't, why then we would follow the other direction that you're referring to. And I think that's, but either way, we need to show up on that issue. I think you're right.
Okay, very good. So Tess, you'll send that to me on email.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And I wasn't sure, Tess, if that was committee member news or announcements or public comment.
I guess it's committee member news and announcements. You can consider it that. And I'm sorry if I jumped ahead. I thought I was in order.
Well, you're always ahead of the game, Tess. That's why we love you. Okay, next, any more committee member news and announcements? All right, it's gonna be a quick meeting. All right, let's go on to number 6, old business. And I will kick it off to Ren, 6.1, City Planning Department Community Plan. Go ahead, Ren.
Yeah, we had our special meeting on August 23rd. It was, it was well attended, but not as heavily as I'd hoped. But it was a good warm up. The city planning staff showed a community plan map that didn't have any of the detail I was looking for very much, except it had a big, what was it, a pink blob that was the Lancashire. It was kind of a triangle, big area of Toluca Lake that was targeted, if you will, for additional development. And, forewarned, I guess, is forearmed. There wasn't nearly the detail I was hoping for. The planners are really just getting started on our community plan, even though they've had 2 years of, having this in the works, but they've been working on other things, obviously. So they extended the time that they're going to review this and present it into the middle of next year. So we have a good deal more time than I thought for us to review what they're proposing and watch out for it. And we need to be careful because some of their map is basically saying, this area isn't going to change. Well, if they change the definition of what various kinds of zoning allows, effectively what can be built in a, area zoned R1 or R2, might become substantially greater. So we have to be careful. The other thing we have to watch for are commercial areas, Lancashire and Boulevard. I think we need to watch out that we get what we want. Beautification Partners and everybody's worked pretty hard to put together the specific plan for the village, and input from a wide range of people. I had more than 500 people comment on the community plan, but we need to make sure that gets into the plan in the kind of form and format that we want. So that's upcoming, and we'll keep after the the planning staff to show up at our meetings and make presentations and address our questions and issues in some detail. You know, the planners tend to gloss over things if we're not leaning on them. So we will lean.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ren. And I see Tess and Bob, but before I call on you guys, I just want to add a few things. I would like to, and I'm going to review the audio from that meeting on August 23rd. There were some very, very good questions asked at that meeting by the general public and the committee members that weren't really answered by the planners. So what I was going to do is transcribe all these questions into an email that I'd like to send to the planning people to answer in writing from the committee. So when I draft this email, I want to send it to the rest of the committee, and I would like the rest of the committee to add more questions or fine tune or whatnot, and we will send this out and get all of these questions answered. The other thing that Ren had mentioned with the zoning, there were a lot of things that were alarming that was said by these planners, but one I thought was that they want to rename all of the zoning names. You know, so R1 would no longer be R1, R2, et cetera, they would be named something else. And my main question for that was, well, because he said that they're not going to change the zoning, they're just being a new name. But that doesn't make sense to me. You know, why would there be a new name if it's not going to change? But that was a little alarming to me as well. The other thing that I would like to do is have these, and maybe after these questions are answered, is have these planning people come and speak to the general board as well, in addition to other planning meetings as well. I think they need to go to the general board and an answer to the general public as well. So that's something that we should do. And then before the end of the year, I would like to see that happen. Anyway, I just want to throw that in, and now I'll throw it over to Tess. Go ahead, Tess.
Okay. Thank you for that, Fred. That's a really good plan because there were a lot of questions that were not answered. I did follow up with them and got a fair amount of information, and then I dug and I got even more information. I haven't fully digested it yet because we had the month of August off and I put some other priorities forward, but I'm going to go through that and I'll share my findings with the committee. So there's that. I think it's a very good idea, Fred, to follow up with them with questions in writing. I don't know that you have an end date for that, but perhaps we can try to get your questions out before the next committee meeting and a response by what, let's say November?
Sure, absolutely. No,
Okay.
I plan to get this done in the next week or two.
Okay, very good. And then Ren, thank you for that update. I think we really need to keep after the planning staff. You're absolutely right because their presentation was really anemic. But I want to renew my request for the results of this survey performed by Beautification Partners of more than 500 people who commented. Can we see the results of those surveys or that survey? I've asked before, and I know I and a number of other people would love to see it. Please.
Yeah, well, I'll ask for that and get it sent out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Anyone else? All right, there's no more members. Well, there's Colby from the public, but I don't see any hands. That being said, let's go on to 6.2. I think I should probably hand it off to you, Ren. I don't know if we should read the motion or do you want to talk about it first or what should we
Yeah,
do?
let me talk about the motion itself because I think we have to amend it actually. The motion is to provide funding for the Foreman Avenue under 134 freeway bridge angled parking project up to $8,000. Initially, more than 3 years ago now, we had allocated $7,400 for that. And that money ultimately got swept back into our budget last spring. And we did it Colby can give you more background on it, but basically we put that into neighborhood purpose grants rather than, I guess, lose the money. But now we need to reallocate the money so that we can, go back and actually get the plans and the cost estimate put together on a very preliminary basis, but at least enough so that we can then get, some real feedback and some real estimates and so forth of what it's going to really take to get this project done. I think it's still a very realistic project, very valuable for the community, and not just the commercial community, but the residents as well, who have to put up with people parking on the neighborhood streets and the residential areas rather than the commercial area. So anyway, that's the motion. And you'll need a first and a second. We'll need a first and a second.
Okay, so we're gonna have $7,500 as the amount of the funding.
No, I'm sorry, it's 8,000. We'll need to up it to 8,000 now because of the, inflation, the increased cost of actually getting this preliminary study done for us.
Okay, fine. So should I read the motion and then we have discussion, or we continue the discussion now because there's some hands raised?
Okay, well, we need a first and a second. I'll be the first.
Okay, let me read the motion. 6.2 motion C to provide $8,000 of funding for the Foreman Avenue under the 134 bridge angled parking project. Do I have a first?
Yeah, Ren.
And do I have a second? Do I have a second on this?
Ron,
Okay. And how about some discussion? Go ahead, Tess.
Yeah, so, okay. To whom is this funding going to be provided? And is this an NPG? What's the deal on that, Ren?
It's not an MPG. If it had been an MPG 3 years ago, it would have long since gotten done. It goes to back to the city. They have now promised us that they will create the contract with WRT and go forward with the project as it had, has been there and has been sitting. So,
Okay, so if this is not an NPG, what is this called?
it's just a city contract. We're taking our neighborhood council budgeted money and creating a contract.
Okay, so, and I'm not saying that we can't or shouldn't, but that's appropriate, or we're able to do that, because I just
Yes.
haven't seen that done. Okay,
Yeah.
and to whom will this money be paid?
It's a company called WRT.
Okay,
They're a consulting firm. They were selected, again, 3 years ago, out of 4 different firms that competed, gave us bids on it.
okay.
We're the low bidder at that point by a substantial amount. And, they're relatively local.
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, I know about the name. So my strong request would be that we make this motion a bit more clear, that it's going to be payable to WRT, that we put some sort of deadline on it, or, the right to renew or re-up, what have you, so that we don't end up in this no man's land by virtue of, the city not signing contracts, et cetera. So, money is valuable, and I don't like to see it sit around or wasted or what have you. So I would want to know what, this is a very vaguely worded motion. Is this going to be for plans? Because I know a great deal of work has already been done on this, Ren, as you know, too. What plans have been done? What's been paid for? What's outstanding? What do we need? All that kind of things. This is taxpayer money, and we're fiduciaries. We have to be very responsible for it. So, and I can't, this predates my being active on this committee. I don't recall what has already been paid for and what is outstanding. So I would want to understand that before approving this motion. Thank you.
Okay, that's
Yeah, if I may, Fred. I think Tessa's comments are good, and I think if we could pass this motion on our committee with the understanding that we will work this up, the additional detail and information in time for the agenda for our regular GTLNC meeting, because this will have to obviously go to full GTLNC. And at that point, I think the information that Tessa's asking for really should, she's right. It needs to be in the language here so it's clear, where it's going. And some of the background data needs to be probably spelled out here as well. I mean, where this, the history that I talk about should actually probably be in some kind of a report before we put the motion on the table for the GTLNC. But I'd like to ask the committee members to approve this with that understanding, because I hate to have this go yet another month after all the years we've been trying to get this done. So we can get the dollar amount at 8,000 and the basic language.
Well, it could be up to 8,000, Ren, if it's discussed earlier.
Yeah, up to 8,000, right. Up to 8,000.
Okay, so if that's the case, then I'm going to change the wording to motion C to provide up to $8,000 funding to WRT for Foreman Avenue under 134 Bridge Parking Project. How's that for the committee one?
Okay.
Modify that. Okay. All right. Bob Scabelli, go ahead.
Tess hit on a lot of the points that I was going to mention as well, but I'm still very, very confused about what's going on. 3 years ago, we voted to give WRT $7,500, and we've been hearing ever since then that it was just caught up in red tape over at the city. And that was, last time I heard, it was resolved and we're ready to go with it. So now we're saying that 7,500 is lost. Can you tell me about that first?
Yeah, the 70 was 7,400 anyway. The city clerk, has been holding this back and so forth. And when the neighborhood council, done people were redoing the money, they saw this money had been sitting out there, and they swept it in with some other money that was out there as well. And so we got money well, if we had our treasurer, he can explain it, but the bottom line is it all got swept up, and we suddenly had $9,000 that we had to deal with. And Colby remembers all of this. And so we created neighborhood purpose grants, and we got the money out on the street, which is a good thing. But now we finally got the okay from the city clerk and the city attorney and everybody to go forward with this project. And now we don't have the money allocated anymore. So,
see, well, that's another point of confusion. At that time, I was repeatedly told that the money could not be brought back to the council. Either we spent it on WRT or we would lose it.
Yeah, we were told.
So what changed?
For quite a while, and then suddenly just simply move that money back into our budget. So I don't,
So we're not spending new money. We're spending old money.
Well, we've spent the old money. Now we need to have.
Well, no. What did we spend it on, Ren?
It was neighborhood purpose grants at the.
No, I'm sorry, but
maybe you could talk
I've been on the
about
council. I never saw anything for any neighborhood grant. We have to back that. I'm not going to vote on. I suggest you don't vote on this till we get more information. And the second point I want to bring up is the council can't give money to a private corporation. That's not legal. So Tess asked you very pointedly who's getting this money.
No, this isn't a gift. We are buying services from an outside vendor
No, Ren, you're twisting words.
Yeah, we
I
do all the
respect
time.
you.
Every
I worked
month
with
we
you for
buy
many,
stuff.
many, many years. You signed a contract with a private corporation for their services. That's not legal.
I
So
don't.
if you want to get around
Yeah,
it,
you
give
can
the
say that.
money to the
The city
beautification
does
fund.
that every day. They hire private corporations to provide goods and services to the city for a whole wide range of things. That's,
It is legal. It is legal. I mean, it'd be as if we hired vendors if we have, like the turkey trot coming up, if we hired someone to sell hot dogs or give away hot dogs to the public. The neighborhood council is definitely permitted.
Can I
to-
speak? I think
Colby,
I
not
can
to interrupt.
resolve, I think I can
If we're
resolve
permitted to
this.
do that, why has it been 3 years in the city?
Because
Well-
it's been 3 years. I was on this meeting this summer with Jeff Brill and the city. It was not our fault. The city dragged their feet, to be honest with you. And I wish you were on the meeting also. The city dragged their feet for over 3 years. And it's not
Well,
Ren's fault. I
Robert?
came in on this fairly recently, and I look at everything and the pieces on the ground. And Ren and my predecessors on this board did everything they could do to make this happen. And I've seen firsthand since I've become president, I've been working with the city to get this done also. I've been seeing the mountain that has been put in front of us. And no one on this board dropped the ball. And this money.
Please, I've been.
Well,
Colby,
and
I've
also
been
we
around.
are
I'm not
of course, we have
criticizing
to work with
anyone.
outside vendors, and this is not an NPG. We're not giving money, we're not donating money to this corporation, this company. We're simply hiring them, and the money was not spent. The money was never sent to WRT. It never even got to WRT.
No,
Not
I know it wasn't
$1
sent, but
went
my
spent.
point was at that time I was told that if it wasn't spent, we lost it.
Well, no, it's actually what happened was,
So
if you
good
remember,
news. You're saying we have it.
this spring, Arthur said, "Oh, we got more money rolled into our account," and I was told, and also Robert, and sometimes we're not told correct information, because I was on planning and land use 3 years ago with you, and I heard that also. But if you remember a few months ago, Arthur and I still, Arthur will talk more tomorrow, and I hope you show up to our exec meeting about this money. And basically what happened was, in some ways it's a good thing. This money, instead of being pushed aside and sitting, rotting away in escrow somewhere, actually was put to good use. And all we're asking now is to reinstate this money for this project that probably over 100 hours. Ren, how many hours do you think have been spent on this project? 100 plus hours over the last 3 or 4 years on this project. And now I'm getting sucked into it. I'm telling you, I wish, I'm going to invite you to the next
yeah,
meeting.
a lot more than 100 hours.
It's exhausting, and
Everybody's
it's a
time.
firewall they put up.
Well,
And I
2
know you
points then.
think it's something else, but it's not.
One, if we got the money back, well, that's fantastic.
We have the money.
news.
We have
All
the
right.
money. Money.
As far
money is
as
not there.
my comment about legality was on NPGs. It's not legal for an NPG.
It's not an NPG, and it's legal
Okay,
for
so
us to hire people.
it's not an NPG.
It's not an NPG.
All right. And if the council votes it, then we're going to up it to $8,000. Is WRT giving us a new number, Ren?
So, go ahead, Ren.
They haven't yet. And I think one aspect of this, at least at the beginning, WRT was doing this for the fun of it in some senses. I mean, this is something they were interested in doing. And they were going to spend probably a lot more staff time and energy and so forth than the $7,400. We want to up it to at least $8,000 to do, if nothing else, to recognize inflation and so forth.
But they haven't agreed to that? As far as you
No.
know?
So I want to make this. So I've reached out to WRT, to John Gibbs twice in the past 2 weeks to try to reinvigorate this project. I don't know, since over 3 years have passed since they agreed upon the $7,400 and 10, I believe it's $7,410 and change. I don't know where it stands now. And I need it. So that's why I said, Ren and I discussed this before. I said, let's get a little buffer for inflation up to $8,000. But I haven't heard back from John Gibbs. I hope that they are willing to do it for around that number after all this time.
Well, why are we putting forward a motion for money when we don't even know where they stand? And
I
if they're
agree
going
with-
to
I
take-
agree
I
with
want to get
Tess.
the ball rolling, Tess. That's why.
But isn't that putting the cart before the horse, Colby?
Absolutely not. Not the way this works.
It looks like it to me, but I think Jonathan has
Well, you're
some
wrong.
questions.
You're wrong.
I'm
I
not,
want you to be in the front
excuse me,
line with
guys,
this.
I'm still not finished, okay? Let me continue. I forgot my train of thought, but Tess was correct on bringing that up. Okay, if we have the money and if WRT still wants to do it and you think the city will sign this thing, then I would say bring it to the council, but I still have a lot of uneasiness about it.
Can I just make one comment before Jonathan goes? With this motion, is it just for the committee to allocate the funding, just to give the approval to do it? Doesn't mean we're going to spend it. That has to go to the general board first, but this is the first step that says, yes, we support this. It doesn't mean it's going to be spent like this. Is that correct?
That's true, Fred, but the board very much depends on this committee for guidance. So if we say, yes, we approve $8,000, that carries a lot of weight. If we go back, as Tess says, if we stop and say, wait, how much do they want it for this? And is it worth it? That's another story.
But, okay, but the motion was reworded to say up to 8,000. So it may be a different number. But no more.
So I'm putting it back to you, Robert and Tess. This takes a lot of work. And if you guys aren't even willing to move this forward as up to 8,000, doesn't mean it's right. You're right, Fred. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Then this is actually taking a lot of my time. This is why I related it as attentive to other things in the past month, because I've been working on this with Jeffrey Brill. And if you guys aren't even willing to pass this motion, then why am I even pushing this rock
Okay,
up a hill?
Colby.
Well, we have to discuss it, Colby.
Yeah,
That's not fair.
Colby, that's not fair. And there's too much information missing for me to support this right now. I'm not saying that I won't, but I would want questions answered. And with all respect, I do think we're putting the cart before the horse. And if you're putting a lot of work into it, that's great. I mean, we're all putting work into things. So, I have a couple more questions, but I've already spoken quite a lot. So let Jonathan ask his questions and we can come back to mine. Thank you.
Thanks. I would like to say, first of all, I detect, it's clear on the plate that there's frustration around this. And I think everyone should take a step back and say, the frustration is caused by the inability to get things done because other people are complicated and the rules are usually dystopian or something. So nobody's really mad at each other, but it's just a matter of sorting it out. What I can bring to the table is that when I was reading the rules of NPGs, that it's correct. This is not an MPG, because remember, when you go over $5,000 on a contract, that requires a city contract. There's a different mechanism. It's called Community Improvement Project or Capital Improvement Project, CIP, I think. And I think that's what this sounds like, that the neighborhood council would be voting on one of them. I'm not certain, but that's what it sounds like to me. And that's when you got it's a contract between the city and it sounds like WP, whatever you called it, that company. What is a little confusing was that it was clearly stated, but it's confused, that the money was first allocated at $7,500. It was never used. The money came back to the neighborhood council, and in the willingness to spend the money somehow before it was defaulted back to the city, they gave it out to unrelated NPG applications. So in essence, now we're looking at a request for $8,000. So that should trigger the question, how much is in our budget this year? In other words, each year, I think we're getting 28 or 30,000. Did 32. We receive?
It's 42,000.
40, okay. Is that there? Because I didn't look at the financial for tomorrow night.
Yes,
okay, so we have to think about what percentage of the total $8,000 is. Let's see. The other thing I have a question of is when you think about the priorities, I always ask myself, well, what's in it already? I saw online several months ago quite an elaborate sketch of this project. And if no money was spent, who paid for that, or was it just a complimentary, quite elaborate plan of this? I remember seeing something with angled parking. So my question is, where did that sketch come from, and was any money spent on it? Because for me, the priority of a project kind of rises depending on how much has been invested in it, both in time, like Colby's saying, as well as finances. The other side of the coin, I would say, as a neighborhood council, we have to look at the stakeholders' priorities. And one of the highest priorities I hear from stakeholders is they really do not want public spaces that look like KOA campgrounds. So, I mean, that's the other side. So there's a side for moving forward on this, and then there's a side for asking what are our current priorities and how much money do we have to do that? Thank you.
Jonathan, you're absolutely correct, and Ren can verify it with me. There was a preliminary design done before this request for a final design, and I think we spent $5,000. Do you remember, Ren? I think we spent $5,000 on the preliminary.
My recollection is it was done gratis.
Yeah.
I think it was Ryan Altoon at that point got people he knew to draw it out for us, and that was the point where people were saying, well, this gives us an idea of what we're talking about, but we need something more formal in the way of a layout and a plan and a rough cost estimate, so we could really go to potential funding sources and say, here's what we're talking about, and here's what what we think it'll cost, ballpark. And the other thing is going to various city agencies and saying, this is what we're proposing. And, you've got a dozen city departments that will all chime in with their little piece of whatever this is, the signage and the parking and the if there's any sewers or, water lines or something that go under there. We got to go to Caltrans and promise them we're not sticking anything to the walls. So everything is, you can do whatever you want underneath the freeway. You just can't attach yourself to the freeway. So there's a whole bunch of people we need to communicate with a formal enough plan so that people can see what we're really talking about. And professionals can begin to chime in. So that was the purpose for this 3 years ago. And we have some outside funding sources to actually get the work done. So we're not going to come back to the neighborhood council and say we need, $200,000, 4 years worth of commitment from you to do this work. There are funding sources for this. And it's been a shame that we've had to wait so long. I mean, if this had gone through quickly, we might have that parking there now. But that's water under the bridge. So we need to see what we can do. I still think it's a very valuable project for the community. Parking places are worth, depending on who you're talking to, $50,000 to $200,000 each. So, they're quite valuable. If we can get that built for less than that, or get it built for free for us, then that's a real gift to the community.
Ren,
anyway,
we would need to know like the sources of the funding in order to sensibly approve this. It's as Bob and Tess are saying, people need to understand if we're going to spend the stakeholders' money, $8,000, it makes sense to know how much has been allocated from external sources to complete the project. All of that, wait a minute, because Colby has worked so hard on it and it's meaningful. If we need to, I'd be willing to show up for a special meeting. So I'm not saying to push it off, but what I'm saying is the information is important. Thanks.
Yeah, the actual approval for the project, it can't come until we know what the project is. And so that's what this design is for. And when we start getting people able to talk about this in a realistic way, then we'll know what we're talking about. If we're talking about $10 million, it's dead. if we're talking about, $400,000 or $500,000 to get this done, then it's very valuable. So there's a lot of things we need, and we need this study done, this plan, so that we can, what ballpark we're in, and we can start getting potential funding sources to step up and say, if in order to build what you've shown us here, we're willing to commit funding.
And that's the tough part, is sometimes there are questions that you'll ask that there are no answers to. The city doesn't have the answer, or no one has the answer, but that's the, there are no answers sometimes to some questions, and they're valid questions, and those questions were probably posed years ago, but there were no answers then either. But I just want to also reiterate that it wasn't, I just started getting into this, but it was really Ren and his predecessors, and it really worked hard on this. I just started working hard on it, and I see how difficult, outrageously difficult this has been. To no fault of the board.
Could we say accurately then that this is an $8,000 motion that's really a proposal? It isn't really a hard, we don't know if it's an investment.
We don't know, and that we don't know, and it could be the same as before. It could be 7,410 or whatever it was, or $7,500. It was right below $7,500.
No, I don't mean the 8,000. What I mean is with the money spent, whether it be 7,500 or 8,000, it isn't necessarily a project on the table because we don't know everything about it. We don't know if it's doable. Is that right?
Well, that's what this
Yes.
this is for. That's what is to find out what it would cost, right, Ren? You know more about this than I do. This is basically a feasibility study, as far as I understand it to be.
Yeah, but what we're doing is we're taking on, and again, don't take my comments as critical or not wanting to help and contribute to this conversation, but we've been trying to deal with DOT on the smallest of things, and it's impossible. Now you're asking them to go out, get bids. Maybe it's a $500,000 project to get some parking spaces. Realistically, I just think we can spend this money on more pressing things. The Garden Club does incredible things. They plant plants all along Riverside Drive. The street furniture needs improvement. There's filth all over the place. That's an immediate impact on the committee, and something that stakeholders can see. You're going to get a final design on a plan, then go out and try to get funding, then get the city and Caltrans to allow you to build on their property. And that's another several years. And I think the money can be better spent, is what my main point is. And I hope you don't take that to be negative.
I'd like to say one quick thing. It's a very good comment, Bob. Personally, I support this project, and I think Jonathan said a very key word, and that is proposal. And if we could somehow say, this is a proposed budget allocation, and do that now, because we're not really doing anything until the general board votes on it, and we'll get all the other information by that time. I would really hate to have it voted down now and it go away. So I would suggest one of two things: is we do a proposed allocation, we get all the information, we let the general board make the final decision, or we do not vote on this motion until the next plum meeting when we do have all the information. It just goes back one more month. But I don't think it would be a problem to vote on it today, because like Jonathan said, it's just proposed. It's not really anything in concrete. So that's my comments. Go ahead, Tess.
Thank you. Yeah, so there are just too many things to me that are unclear, and I don't want to be unsupportive because I think it's a decent project. I did want to ask a couple points of clarification. Ren, you were talking about how it can cost between $15,000 and $200,000 each. Were you talking about an individual parking space? Okay.
Yeah.
An individual parking space. Okay.
No, he was saying to add the value. They don't cost that each. He said the value to the community is $15,000 to $200,000.
I see. Okay. The value.
Not the price.
Okay. Value to the community. Okay.
Well, the value to the community can be a lot more than that, up to a couple $100,000 per parking spot. It depends on where you are and what.
Okay. Okay,
In
noted.
Toluca Lake, I think parking slots are quite valuable because the underlying real estate is valuable. So if a developer is building parking,
Yeah, I get
they
it.
pay
I
a
mean,
lot for it.
that's why developers want to remove parking because it's much more profitable for them to build units rather than parking spaces. But a couple points of clarification regarding the money. So is this proposed $8,000 coming out of our annual neighborhood council budget or not? I'm still not
Yes.
clear. Yes, okay.
Yes.
And then, okay, so I would really like to see this better described, even if it's just a feasibility study. And you refer, Ren, to funding sources. Are they public or private? What sources are those? What potential sources are those? And what is even the ballpark cost for this? Is that unknown?
That's the purpose of this study primarily, is to get a description of what the project is in enough detail so that we can then, see what it's going to cost to build it. And get knowledgeable people to tell us, okay, if I were, a contractor to build this, I would charge.
Okay,
amount of money.
understood. So feasibility study, clear, that's clear. And these funding sources, what, can you name some of them? Where will the money be solicited from exactly?
Well, 3 years ago, we had 3 or 4. I don't think one is the state. There's some state money for this kind of thing. There's also city money, various grants and special fundings that's coming. There's some private sources.
Okay,
Start naming names because I don't want somebody to call them up tomorrow morning and say, hey, somebody just said you promised to fund the parking under the freeway. You can't ask somebody for money until you can tell them, how much you're asking for.
is Universal a possible contributor?
They're pretty obvious ask. Yes, yeah, they would.
Yeah, I just met with them last week with Darnell and nice people.
Yeah, they're now whether they would fund the whole thing, that's probably unlikely, but they might contribute a serious part of it. But that's the next phase. Once we really have the picture of what we're building and we have a cost estimate of what it's going to cost in total.
Okay.
And from there, we can go out and line up our sources.
And what is, sorry, one last question, and then I'll be quiet for a moment, only a moment. What is Darnell's last name up at Universal, the PR guy?
Oh, hold on, it's right here. Tyler.
Darnell Tyler?
Yes.
Thank you. And he's in public relations?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just one, I'd like to go back to the budget because I did hear that, are we back to $42,000 as a budget? Well, we were at 32 because of the pandemic.
Is it still at 32?
Still 32.
Okay, that was
We
my,
will receive that 32,000 plus we had a little carryover. If you remember around.
And we have
Arthur will
fixed,
fill us in tomorrow.
we have
Like
fixed costs of about 20,000, 22,000
$32,000 is our budget per year.
total
which-
budget, but that's the discretionary amount of that is only about 10,000. In other words, you have allocated 20 some odd thousand for all our services, web page and collections, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, yes, yes.
So you only have about maybe 10,000 left?
No, we have more than that, but we'll have Arthur get in more detail tomorrow.
So this 8 would represent, it's fair to say the 8 would be a bulk of the money that we have. There'd be
I
very
can't
little
say
for
that.
anything else, in other words.
it sounds like it.
It is.
Yeah, but the year's almost over, isn't it?
Sorry?
Isn't the year
No,
almost
it's
over?
New Year. It's a new year.
It ended in June.
Oh, I see.
I think I'm just going to remind the committee, the bulk of the council's money has always gone to this committee by far. And I think it's time to reevaluate that. There are lots of projects that could be happening in Toluca Lake that are short-term and would give us immediate results. I have no faith that this is going to happen, I guess. I might as well say it right out in the open.
Robert, I share your skepticism.
Yeah, you and I have fought for a simple thing like a fence.
I know.
And now
Yeah.
to go to the Caltrans and the city and say, we want to build something on your property, and here's a plan we just came up with. I just don't have any faith, and I hope I'm wrong. I wish you all the best with it.
Okay, let's move this along. Jonathan, go ahead.
And one last comment, Fred, it's not fair to say it's just a proposal, so the committee should rubber stamp it. It's our decision is very, very important. The Plum Committee decides these things. So you have to decide whether this is a project you want to support or not.
Well, I do want to support it, but the
Okay,
general-
then instead of the say, okay, maybe you want to reword the proposal then, but
Well, I still feel it's still a proposal because it's not anything concrete till the general board votes on it.
no, I disagree with you. Respectfully disagree with you. I think this committee, this vote is whether or not you think this is something that we should spend our money on.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to give this
And
a yes right now.
Neither
There's
am I. I'm not
enough-
prepared to vote on that.
There's not enough information, and it's not that it might not be worthwhile. And I know there's been a lot of work put into this. I would need to have some, I need to have a more descriptive motion before I would support this as it currently reads.
I agree with Tess.
Okay, so let me ask you this, and let's have Jonathan talk. If it was more descriptive and more info, and we tabled this vote till a future meeting, would your minds be persuaded, perhaps?
No.
Is that an appropriate?
I can be persuaded, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna promise you anything. I need to see solid information. And I'd like to know, what if anything has been spent with, WRT? Is it in fact true that they've done all of this gratis up until now? That's great. Either way. And even if we have spent money with them, what if we spent it on, are we going to be paying to redo some of the same old things? Because it's been sitting on a shelf for so long with no fault to them or to any of us, just the slowness of the city's movement, that sort of thing.
Okay, so, all right. Jonathan, go ahead.
I would say that the motion requires language, exactly what you're proposing, meaning what is the mechanism, whether it's got to be, I think it's a community improvement project. All of that has to be in the motion, but maybe it could read in this committee pending, we might be approving it pending satisfaction of more information. For me, even hearing that there's, let's just say it's $200,000 on the lean side, on the underestimation side to complete the project, that's the kind of thing I would want to know, well, what's the feasibility of these donations coming in and what is their motivation? For example, Universal Studios, it's not clear to me because I have no experience, but what is the motivation for them to spend $100,000 on Greater Toluca Lake? Is there a relationship that substantiates that kind of conduct, financial conduct? So in deciding to spend $8,000, because it's a big chunk of the percentage, I think we need good language on a motion. And we have to know, just like Tess and Robert are saying, we have to know exactly how likely this project is to succeed in order to justify spending $8,000. And it always thanks Colby or anyone for their investment in trying to do something to better the community. Certainly parking spaces help, but it's a priority issue and a likelihood of success. Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jonathan. Let me just put one more question to Ren. Ren, it looks like we're gonna have 3 no votes. So do you want to continue to vote on this motion? You want to put it to the next meeting?
Well, it sounds like at this moment we have a majority no votes. The people, at least the people who've been talking, we haven't heard from several members of the committee, but in any event, We could put it off another month. I mean, after 3 years, one more month won't kill us. But if we keep putting it off, one more thing, let's get more information on this. Let's, we'll fix the language on that. Another month. At some point, it becomes clear that it's not going to happen. And I can hear people saying, this is not something neighborhood councils do anymore. We did when we started out. We've got islands that got put in. Terry Davis did some amazing things. Ryan Altoon got a number of things done and has some other things that are in the works still. But if this neighborhood council feels like they don't want to take on any serious projects, planting flowers or, painting a wall or something. But, if this neighborhood council doesn't have the courage and the experience in the community to know that these kind of things can get done, and they do get done, if you don't believe, then it certainly won't happen. So you might as well just go back to spending all your money on elections and on, all of the frills and not try to do anything serious in the community, because it takes a lot of work and a long time, a long commitment, especially if you're fighting the city as we have been on this one. They've been trying to sabotage this for 3 years, and if you're going to make them, successful at doing that, then I'm, your future is grim. If the city knows that every time they see something they don't like from a neighborhood council, they can just sabotage it and it'll die and disappear, then what good are neighborhood councils ultimately? You just do what the council person wants, that the city staff wants. And anyway, I'm sorry.
All right. That's all right. Hey, it's already 10 after 8. Why don't we table this?
Put it off a month and we'll get more information back to everybody so they can at least see the more detail about what we're talking about.
All right, go ahead, Ron. Your turn.
Well, I was going to say that if the vote we're taking tonight, I'm a yes vote. So there's at least 3-3. I guess it's up to Jonathan.
Jonathan sounds like a no.
Yeah, I wouldn't go along with spending that much money of the stakeholders with so little information, and maybe frustrating for all of you, but I think it's people's duties to know where the funding is likely to come from. And even when Ren says that the city tried to sabotage it, I don't even understand why they would. I mean, there's a reason, I'm sure, but I don't know what that history is. And parking spaces, my first question is, who are they projected to be used by? Is that for commerce or would that be for homeowners? I don't know even the assignment of information to determine a priority. So that's why I say it would be unrealistic for me to make a sensible vote knowing so little.
Yeah, I agree with all of you, what you guys are saying. We need more information. I would assume it would be metered parking for commerce. But again, let's come back to this at the next meeting. It's already 10 after 8. We have a lot to cover. So I think the point's taken. Ren will get more information, and let's readdress it in the October.
Well, I would like to address Ren's final comment. Ren, I hope you're not going to throw yourself out of a first floor window over this.
Ren, we love you.
we know this stuff takes a long time, and nobody's questioning your, desire to get things done. And some of us are newer to the process than others. And if my desire to improve this neighborhood isn't clear to everybody, then maybe you haven't been listening to me. So if we don't, agree on precisely how to move forward, that doesn't mean that I don't want this neighborhood council to, quote, take on serious projects. And your assessment that our future is, quote, grim, I think maybe is more a reflection of your, disappointment with not getting this to move faster But I think it's our duty to ask questions. In fact, it is our duty. You know, we have a fiscal responsibility. We are fiduciaries to the stakeholders. Tax money is not something to be treated lightly. And I think a lot of people, if this was money coming out of their own checkbooks, they would think twice before spending it. So I'm doing what I would do with my own money and my own budget. I want to know what's up with it, where it's going, a bit more detail. And I certainly appreciate the work that's been done on this. And that's, I'm not saying that I won't approve this in the future. There's just not enough here now. And as far as the priority is, what Jonathan said, determination of the priority in the assignment, is this commerce, is this, households, is this private homeowners, whatever. All of these are important questions. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
And just one last time. Ren, Tess said it much better than me.
Comments. Let's move on.
We certainly support and respect what the beautification partners are doing, what you and Ryan and everybody else on that beautification partners is doing. But Tess said it better than me, and we support you. We just need more information on this particular project.
All right, spread the love. We got a lot of love. Jonathan, really quick, and then let's move on to 6.3. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Fred, what are you asking me?
Your hand is up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll put it down. I'm sorry.
Mine down too.
All right, so we're done with this. Let's go to 6.3. Ren, go ahead. Update on the Riverside Drive Gelson's project.
Yeah, I really don't have anything more on this. One little thing I did see, evidently the post office people have put a temporary post office back on the parking lot there. And I was surprised and encouraged by that. I don't know, maybe they do intend to keep a Toluca Lake post office. That would amaze me, but that's still a possibility, I guess. Beyond that, I think the project is going to go forward as planned, as described, residential above commercial, and it's going to be, if not Gelson's, it'll probably be something equivalent. So I think we fought a battle, and for the most part, I mean, we got some things, but we certainly didn't get what I think people were hoping for. That's too bad. Any other comments, or did anybody else have more information? Tess, do you have any information more on the post office?
Yes, but Colby had his hand up.
Oh, thanks, Tess. Yeah, it looks like we have the post office in a temporary hold for a while. I talked to a employee a few weeks ago when that, as you maybe everyone knows this already, but it looks like they'll be here until 2026. The employee told me that their lease expires in 2026. So it looks like in the next 2 years they'll be in that temporary facility. And then the employee said that they're hoping to, I don't know, how much how much validation there is in this statement, but hoping to move back into that development after it's completed. So it was all this time I've been worried, and everyone's been so worried about losing the post office, and we put in calls to Hertzberg and everywhere, and all of a sudden it's great. This trailer rolls up, and someone says, "Oh yeah, it's going to be here." That's what I'm told. So anyway, I also have info. Maybe my info is wrong, but I hope I'm right, or I hope I was told right, or the correct information.
Well, what I was given, and I think I saw the photo of it, it's behind Patty's. And I also talked to an employee, and I think they said they were moving there after Labor Day, I believe.
Actually, I'm pulling up an email right now. It's a letter. I think I can pull it up. You go ahead and talk, and if I can find it, I'll.
You know what, Colby, I'm looking for the same letter.
I have it right here. Just find it. I can't get it big enough so I can see it. Hold on.
Yeah, well, in essence, they said your address won't change. We'll be in the temporary trailer for a while. Have a nice day. Goodbye. So
hold on. I have the letter here. Let me just read it to you. If you want me, I can read it to you briefly.
Go ahead.
Robin sent this to me a little while ago. The post office is an integral part of the. Okay, we don't have to do that. At this time, I would like to provide advance notice that the Toluca Lake Post Office, located at 1060 Riverside Drive, will be relocating to a temporary structure directly behind the existing location. The temporary building will be accessible from Clybourne Street. Your address and PO box will remain the same and as will all rental and PO boxes in the lobby, as will the lobby hours. The tentative date for the new location is September 6th, 2022. Additional information will follow as it becomes available. And that's it. So that's great news. I'm very happy. And again, the employee told me their lease is up in 2026. So that's what I'm told. I'll lower my hand.
Yeah, that's great news.
It is great news. I don't know how it happened. I don't know if we had an impact on that or the greater community or something, but that's nice bit of good news for us.
Okay, so should we move on to 6.4, state legislative agenda?
Okay.
Is that Tess? Want to take that?
Yeah.
Sure, unless, Ren, you've got anything?
No, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, so, number of these bills have passed. Some are in what's called, let's see, engrossing and enrolling, which is basically, two separate and distinct activities. I guess it's conforming language, making sure the language is okay. So going from the agenda here, SB 15, I'm wondering, Fred, is there a reason this was on the agenda? Because this passed in 2021. Has it resurfaced?
No, actually, what we just did is we took the old bullet points from previous agendas to.
Okay, all right. So I think that's a non-issue then. SB 897, that's passed and ordered to engrossing and enrolling, which I believe is the step before it goes to the governor's desk. Homelessness and Affordable Housing, California Constitutional Amendment, ACA 14, has been re-referred to Committee on Appropriations on May 2022. So that's in the works. AB 2053, that failed to pass, but reconsideration has been granted. So AB 2097, Friedman, related to land use parking requirements. The Senate amendments have been concurred with, and it's gone to engrossing and enrolling. Ren, I guess that means the language is being perfected before it goes to the governor's desk. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, and sometimes there's, one house and the other don't quite have the same language. I mean, there's technical stuff that goes on at that level, that stage.
So that looks like it's going forward. AB 2186, the Housing Cost Reduction Incentive Program, that's passed Senate appropriations and it's been placed in the suspense file being held under submission. So that's stalled. AB 2244 WICS, the Religious Institution Affiliated Housing, co-located place of worship. It has passed and Newsom has signed it. The next two bills, AB 2334 and AB 682, both related to density bonuses, are on the governor's desk. So that is the status of legislation. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none.
Me. Jonathan.
Okay. Oh, Jonathan?
I'll say it really quickly is I had a conversation with Tess earlier, I think it was today, but I can't remember Tess, but in any case, all of these legislative points, whether they're active or sleeping or decided, they're all about housing. And what I said to Tess is perhaps one of the things this neighborhood council could do is issue a letter of action rather than only CISs waiting for things to pass by city council. That does clearly define Greater Toluca Lake, its philosophy, because my predisposition is that I see stakeholders that are very, very disgusted with this, what they perceive. I'm a board member, so I'm trying to speak for stakeholders. They perceive an attack on democratic capitalism. And what I mean by that is there are so few incentives offered by city council to compel people to pay rents, to compel landowners to offer units for rent. it's just upside down. It's dystopian what's going on. And I think perhaps a letter of action listing out where we're at, because I think we stand to benefit by being recognized as a home for democratic capitalism. And I just think we're getting drowned out by the minority of activists who are just watch city council. Look at all this stuff that doesn't represent hardworking middle-class Americans. So I think perhaps we can think about that. Thanks.
Okay, so should we move on to 6.5? The regional.
Sure, and I will agree with Jonathan. I think some proactive letters or requests for action are a very good idea, and I'm happy to draft a bunch of them, especially because I think there's a lot of top-down dictation of housing policy that does not correspond with the reality and with what is actually a false narrative of a housing crisis. There are people who can't afford to live places, but we have well over 93,000 vacancies in Los Angeles today. And I was just downtown yesterday. There are new buildings going up left and right, and they're all being purchased, bought out before they've even been completed to be held as Airbnb units because people can get upwards of $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a month in rent through Airbnb. And, this is a problem that's contributing to the quote, so-called housing shortage. So thanks for that, Jonathan.
Sure.
Okay, Colby, you have your hand up.
I don't know if what's more powerful, and maybe Tess or Jonathan could look into this. Would a letter of action be more powerful or a CIS? Because I know CIS can only be submitted by entities like us, and I'm not quite sure of. And Tess, or you guys are better on this, but the letter of action, like how is that stronger than a CIS? I'm not challenging you, I'm just curious.
A CIS, Colby, has to be attached to a council file. All right.
Right.
So a request for action is a broader statement, and we would have to be clear. We don't say something like we want bunnies and ice cream cones every Thursday, or of course we could, but we want to give some clear direction and some support, very much like the LAPD letter of support, which, by the way, that letter has been recognized by other neighborhood councils who are passing similar letters now, much to the delight of the police, who feel pretty beleaguered these days. And requests for standards in a neighborhood. I think the more specific, the better. But we can draft some requests for action, see how the committee feels about it, and
if it's something attached to a council file, it feels, then it's in that file. Like it feels, I don't know. We'll talk about this. Take this offline. But maybe it's not.
I think it's still valid and relevant, Colby. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, because only really if a select people can do CISs. But okay, let's move forward. You guys move forward.
Okay, so are we going on to 6.6?
6.5.
6.5. Okay, so is that also you, Tess?
That's a holdover from the last agenda. And I guess it wasn't taken off. I don't have anything more current at the moment, but I may have in the future.
Okay, so we'll leave it on for the next meeting.
If you wish, yes.
And okay, now 6.6. That's the document to track the committee projects. Any news on that?
I have not submitted a more recent one, but if anybody has, are there any bills or projects that people want to have included other than those that come down the pike from the LA City Planning Office? All right. Jonathan, since you're new to the committee and to the council, you may wish to subscribe to the planning updates that each each area gets. I will find the most recent one and forward it to you. It's good to have because they break it down by council district and we can see what's coming up in our council district and might require discussion or some kind of action or level of interest from us. So,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
6.7, the clock.
Okay, 6.7, that will be Ren, or the update on the clock.
Yeah, it's actually moving forward and we should have it in, well, Thanksgiving maybe too soon, but by Christmas, famous last words. But I think it really is moving forward at this stage. They've gotten broken through on a couple of issues and they've got the funding to get it put in. So it will, it'll go. And they've got all the sign-offs from the city. That was the main thing that they needed. And so now it's just getting the contractors have been selected and getting them able to do it, finding the materials. That's these days, that's sometimes a problem. But as I say, I'm hoping Thanksgiving.
So the permits are all issued?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Yeah, they've got the permits, they've got it set up, they've got the contractors at least lined up, and now it's a case of who can, it's a step process, so they're going to have to, pour the cement first, et cetera. So it'll take steps, but it should be on its way at this stage.
Who is overseeing the installation at this point? Is it beautification partners or community partners?
Beautification partners, yes.
Okay.
Ran, just a quick question. I'm just curious, what was the holdup? Because when they came to us, this was a chamber project, and I guess that they handed it over to the beautification. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. But when the chamber came to the council for money, they gave us the impression that they just at the finish line and they just needed a push. So we gave them $5,000. What held it up for a couple of years?
Well, they weren't, in fact, at the finish line. They had to get plans drawn up that the city would approve, and there were a number of steps ahead of them. They were, the reason they turned it over to beautification partners was the chamber itself was not in a position to, to understand all the steps they had to take and oversee all of that. Well,
they should have made that clear.
I can give you all the chapters.
No. If you say it's going to happen in the next few months, that's fine. But I'm a little piqued, I guess, that they asked for 5,000 and they weren't ready.
Yeah, for sure, Bob. I mean, $5,000 goes a long way.
Yeah, it does, and that's not fair for them to do that.
And do we know what happened to that money? Was it just spent and?
Well, we gave it to the chamber.
Do we know what happened to that
the chamber,
money?
it wasn't wasted. The chamber actually, I think the 5,000 was part of the money they used to actually buy the clock.
Okay.
The clock has been in storage now for, I don't know, whatever it's been, 18 months or something.
Tess, yeah, at the time, they said it was a $50,000.
Classic, they wanted to put in a clock. They ran out and bought the clock first. And then they started to try and figure out, specifically where they're going to put it and how they get the city, approvals and all that. So anyhow, let's not beat an old dead horse.
Well, again, we're not beating it, Rana. As Tess just said, it's a lot of money, and we have to know what happened to it. If they came to us and I thought it was, ready to go. Maybe I misinterpreted them, but it's not fair. There was but for the benefit of the committee, they said it was a $50,000 clock. They had raised 45, and they just needed 5 more to make it go. So I'm just a little disappointed that it took so long, I guess.
Well, I think the people who were talking to you were honest. They thought,
it was Adam. Yeah, the president of the
chamber would go in. I don't know whether they thought it would be easy or they didn't even think what it would take to get it in. But anyway, it required a number of steps. And if you're not familiar with all the hullabaloo the city puts you through to do something like that. You might think that, you know, the big problem is buying the clock. The big problem is not getting the city to approve installation.
Well, our bad for not pressing it. You know, I know contractors, and contractors don't buy equipment until they get plans and a permit. So,
Well, and we know how that's extremely complicated stuff, which leads to a question and an item I think we should consider. There's language in NPG grant applications that we should be more diligent in following up with when people get NPGs and they don't deliver the project. Likewise, with any project, including the clock or what have you, I mean, people have to have some degree of accountability. They have to report back to us, let us know what's going on. And if they come back with their hat in their hand and the project is only half paid for, contrary to what they warranted and represented when they came for the money in the first place, I know things change, but I want to hold people accountable. Money doesn't grow on trees. So anyway, that's it.
Okay. The last one, 6.8, update on developer COAs. You remember Brandon worked hard to help us draft out and finally adopt the our guidelines and our, you know, kind of our directives to developers. I put this on the agenda because I think we need to go back to it and improve it, update it, et cetera. But we need a volunteer, you know, somebody who can, who's interested in it and is familiar enough with these kind of things to go forward. There are a lot of other neighborhood councils who have, you know, much more elaborate developer directives than what we have. And we can use their language. I don't think we need to go to 26 or 28 pages, which a couple of neighborhood councils have. But, pardon me, I'd like to see us update that, but I don't have time myself to do that. Is there somebody out there who would like to step up and do that?
Well, what updates do you think are needed, Ren?
Well, I, you know, it's getting late. I think what we need to talk about commercial versus residential. I think we need to do some differential language there. I think we need to be a little firmer on scale of development vis-a-vis the neighborhood around these projects. There are a number of factors. The public improvements, you know, the street trees and the sidewalks and all of that. We could go into a lot more detail than we have at this point.
You know, and also I just want to add.
You don't have to, and you know, whether the developers would follow it or not, I don't know. But if we have, you know, if we have it adopted, at least we have something to reference as we're talking to developers. So we're not just shooting from the hip every time. We actually can reference back to our guidelines. And then people who come after us will also, you know, have a place to start.
Yeah, on that note, Ren, I think also what's important that it's ongoing is especially that these new bills have passed, SB 9 and 10, one of them that I don't think we incorporated in this COA, and also with the upcoming community plan, you know, so that could also affect how we're going to modify this document.
Yeah. I'm just hoping there's somebody who think about it and say, okay, I could spend some time on this. This is important enough to me to spend some real hours and draft some things up for the committee to review.
Well, I'm not going to volunteer 100%, but if you send me a couple of your bullet points, Ren, I'll put some time into it. But don't look to me for the final. I'm not a developer.
Okay.
Well,
All right, Jonathan, let's go.
Who speak developer language, though, ideally, who can.
Well, I you know, I think it's more important that they speak our language, frankly. We're the neighborhood and they're coming to us. So that's what I would say. And
Okay, Jonathan, let's have a final comment and we'll go to new business.
I would recommend that you put this on another agenda, but include a copy of it on the meeting materials. That way, at least I would read it right before the meeting, and I would feel like I would know what I'm talking about. Although I watched that being developed, I was doing it as a stakeholder. I don't have clear recollections, so that's why I would recommend just putting it back on another agenda for another meeting with a copy of it, and probably it would move quicker and we'd know what we're talking about. Thanks.
Very good. We love your words of wisdom, Jonathan, and we will do that for October. Thank you very much. With that note, let's go to 7.1. And there was public comment, but I don't see anyone from the public. Colby didn't have his hand raised, so I'm going to assume there's no public comment. Let's go to 7.1. New cases to be tracked by Plum Committee projects by LA City Planning case file number and address. Isn't that Tess? Is that you?
let me see.
No, I think that's us.
Is that
We
us?
get
Okay.
stuff in the mail and we haven't gotten anything. Colby, we don't have any things in the mailbox, do we?
No, I checked late last week and there's nothing new. I'll check this week. I check at least once a week.
Okay, yeah. No, we have no new projects. I don't know whether that's good news or bad, but anyway.
Okay, very good. Ren, why don't you take the last one then, and we'll go to Jonathan Gregory. Or do you want to go, Jonathan? Jonathan, go ahead first. And then
Yeah,
we'll
let me,
take the last one.
I didn't know what that was, new cases. I thought that meant like new business, but now I understand the difference. What I would say is that I sent an email to Colby, to everyone except Ron and Robert, because I didn't have your email addresses. I'm not used to doing pitches at my age, but it's about a community sign over there on that corner of the most awful intersection, which is Vineland and Riverside, right where there's a strip of city land, which we only recently got the city to acknowledge ownership over. Evidently, I think Steve Ferguson or someone has been working to get it re-landscaped, but it's always being, let's just leave the word as abused by failed social programming. So it would be a really cool spot to have a community sign that was 30 to 50% dedicated to the publicity of the greater neighborhood, greater Toluca Lake Neighborhood Council, and the balance for the community in which it would literally be located in, feeds into the community of West Toluca Lake. So I sent pictures, just imagery of the type of signage that could be there. And you've seen probably Tiffany's response, something about adopting. Adopting is a word that we're using real carelessly now in the English language, because places like Caltrans think we're going to adopt pieces of their property and have absolutely no rights or ability to preserve or protect it. And I think that's what the city might think. It's another word for cleaning. You just clean it, but you don't get any particular rights with it. So we need to be careful. I don't know what Tiffany meant. She wasn't here. I would have asked. But anyways, I'm just saying, let's think about that in the next coming months. There's two other things I wanted to mention. I want to remind everyone at the Neighborhood Council, we're moving into the religious holiday period for Jewish people. That would be October 5th of the new year. That's going to cut into attendance of certainly me, but maybe somebody else. The other thing I wanted to mention before Colby leaves is there was something mentioned about planning and land use training earlier in this meeting. And I don't know anything about it and nobody sent me anything. So if there's some kind of training I need to do, someone let me know, okay? Thank you. That's it.
I think what needs to happen, Colby, is for you to send an email to Erica to get Jonathan that planning and land use training. And he can't, I don't think he can vote until he's taken that training. So Jonathan, you'll want to get on, stay on Erica so that you can get it under your belt, hopefully before the next meeting.
Or Jonathan, just email Erica directly.
I will.
Easier. Okay. You have her email, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I have one last note as well, Fred. I I just went through my files, Ran, and I found the proposal from WRT as well as the original preliminary design that Jonathan referred to. If you have more updated documents, that's fine. If not, I'll send it to you and Fred, and you can share that with the committee.
That would be great, Bob.
Yeah, if you would send it, that would be good. I buried mine, so at this point.
No, I just looked at it. It's fine. I have the invoice too from WRT.
Yeah, good. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll send it out tonight.
Okay, 7.2. Do you want to take that, Ren?
Okay, we're looking for legislation issues, people to think about not just the city council, but getting back to our state representatives. As you can see from what gets passed through the state legislature, some of it at least begins at the community level. And so our community could easily, not so easily, front some kind of idea that would end up in state legislation. But it should start now because, we need to get it in front of our state legislators and get them, get it on their agenda for new legislation next year, because it'll come more quickly than anybody thinks. I guess the last thing, our next meeting is Monday, October 10th. Jonathan, is that a part of the Passover and all that?
I will be back on the 7th.
Okay.
I'm leaving the US.
Oh, okay. So good. Okay, we're not in conflict, I hope. So that'll be good. That'll be our next meeting.
I'll be jet lagged and my tongue hanging on the keyboard, but I'll thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess that's it. Meeting is adjourned. It is 7:42 p.m. And that's good, everyone. Thank you
Thank
again.
you.
Thank you very much. Good
Have a
night.
good night.
See you at the board meeting.